Hello and welcome to this special news segment on the 6-second General Conference session of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, coming to you from the West Kenya Union Conference, part of the East Central Africa Division. Of course, this is a production of the East Central Africa Division, bringing you an in-depth coverage of this global gathering of the Seventh-day Adventist Church being held from the 3rd of July to the 12th of July, the year 2025, from the St. Louis Convention Center in Missouri. And so under the powerful theme, Jesus is coming, get involved, of course, the session brings together thousands of Adventists from across the world just to worship, get mission updates, and of course key decisions that will be shaping the future of the church. And we'll also be sharing insights, of course, interviews and stories that reflect the heartbeat of the Adventist movement today. And so we have guests lined up who will be joining us in the studio here just to shed more light on what the session is all about and what is expected versus the history of the General Conference session. So stay tuned as we bring to you this coverage. My name is Titus Munjalu, and with me in studio we have Pastor Nicodemus Onyango coming to us from the West Kenya Union Conference. Pastor Nicodemus, welcome.
Thank you, Titus.
And so as we begin this coverage, of course, it will be going on for the next 10 or so days. Help us understand briefly just an overview of what the session is all about.
Thank you very much, Titus. The Seventh-day Adventist Church have something called session. Session is a constituency meeting. In a constituency meeting, we have church representatives comes together in form of delegates. Then they form a session. In the local church, we have something, or in the Adventist church, we have something called constituency. This constituency starts right from the local church. So when the church want to choose their leaders or they want to make some decisions, they come together with elected few members to represent the larger group of membership. And in the local church, they elect people from the local church, and the local church forms a constituency. The next level of constituency is in the fields and conferences. When we talk of the fields and conferences, we are talking of a group of local churches coming together to form a field or a conference. And in the field and conferences also, when they have their session or they have their constituency meeting, they will elect some few representatives from the local churches to make up a team that will elect leaders in a session. Then after that, we have the union. A union is a group of fields and conferences. They come together to form a union. Then we have something called the union session. Now we'll have representatives from fields and conferences. These representatives include local church members, pastors, institution heads, and other people that are elected from the local church and fields and conferences. Then they come together to elect the leaders of the union. Okay? Then we have the next constituency is the general conference that we are talking about now. In the general conference, now the unions come together to form something called general conference. And then the session is composed of the delegates or representatives from these local unions. They come together in session to meet and form, to elect the leaders. And not only in general conference is not only election of leaders. In general conference, they also review the Adventist policies. And these people vote together so that these policies could run the church for 5 years. These 5 years is what we call the quinquennium. So then in the 5 years, the church will have some new policies, and these policies are voted and passed by the delegates that makes the constituency.
Wow. It's powerful. It's amazing how the Church of God is well structured in a manner that makes you count even if you are not there personally. Because I believe these delegates are a representation of the people from the local churches.
That's true.
It's amazing. And for us to have a better understanding of how the Adventist church is structured, here's a segment that will help us to better understand the structures of the church right from the local church to the General Conference. Stay tuned. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is one of the world's largest Protestant denominations. With over 90,000 local congregations in more than 200 countries, the church is united by more than just shared beliefs. It is held together by a unique and intentional leadership structure designed not for control, but for mission. This structure didn't come by chance. It was carefully developed during the church's reorganization between 1901 and 1903, when leaders recognized the need for a system that could support a growing global movement. Unlike many religious organizations, the Adventist Church doesn't rely on a single head or central governing group. Instead, its authority flows from the members themselves, from the local level upward. Each church member plays a part. Through a representative system, members elect delegates who participate in decision-making locally, regionally, and globally. This ensures that every voice, no matter how small the church or how remote the location, can help shape the direction of the world church. But why does this kind of system matter? Because a church with a worldwide mission needs a structure that both empowers local churches and connects them to a greater vision. It is about unity with a purpose, supporting churches so they can focus on what matters most, and that is leading people to Jesus. This structure operates in 4 levels, each one building on and supporting the one below it. At the center of it all is the local church, the foundation of Adventist ministry and mission. Here, members come together each week for worship, fellowship, and service. They participate in church life by voting on important matters, electing leaders, approving budgets, and planning outreach. The pastor leads spiritually, but it's the congregation that holds the highest authority, ensuring that every major decision involves the members themselves. Above the local church is the local conference. This is a group of churches in the same region, perhaps a city or a group of counties, working together under a shared administration. The conference is responsible for hiring and paying pastors, managing property, and organizing evangelistic programs that impact the broader community. Just like the local church, the conference holds constituency sessions where delegates chosen by church members vote on major decisions. This keeps leadership accountable and ensures that local churches remain involved in regional direction. Multiple local conferences come together to form a union conference. This level provides broader coordination across multiple territories or states. Union conferences oversee large institutions like universities and hospitals, and they are responsible for ordaining pastors and supporting large-scale mission strategies. At the top of the structure is the General Conference, headquartered in Silver Spring, Maryland. This is the global administrative center of the church, and it works through 13 world divisions, each serving a specific geographical region. From East Central Africa to South America, from the Pacific Islands to Europe, these divisions provide customized support for ministry in diverse contexts. Every division carries out the mission of the church in its region, training leaders, funding projects, and ensuring that local churches have the resources they need. But the most important decisions are made when the entire world church gathers together. Every 5 years, the General Conference holds a global session where more than 2,500 delegates from all over the world come together to vote on leadership, policy, and doctrinal matters. These delegates include pastors, teachers, lay people, and administrators. Many of them are regular church members chosen because they represent the heart of the church. At these sessions, decisions are made only after prayer and careful Bible study. Leaders and delegates seek the guidance of the Holy Spirit, knowing that their goal is not personal power, but faithfulness to God's calling and mission. Of course, supporting a worldwide mission takes more than structure. It also takes resources, and that's why the church relies on the faithful giving of its members through tithes and offerings. Tithes are returned to God as a 10% of a member's income, and they are used to support pastors and missionaries around the world. Offerings fund local ministry, regional projects, and global initiatives based on need and mission impact. Through the combined offering plan, 50% of unassigned offerings stay at the local church. Another portion goes to the regional efforts, and the remainder supports global missions, ensuring that even churches in remote or struggling areas receive support. This approach keeps the church united, not only in faith but in generosity and shared responsibility. Every church supports every other church. Every member becomes part of the global mission. In the end, the Seventh-day Adventist church structure isn't just administrative, it is deeply spiritual. It exists to equip every member and every church to fulfill one purpose, which is to prepare the world for the soon return of Jesus Christ. Interesting how the Church of the Lord is organized just for the mission of the Lord, and of course nothing more than mission work. And so I'm joined again with one of my guests to help us better understand some of these things, because I know we need these kind of breakdowns so that we can also follow through the processes as the session takes place. And so after that, let's have an interaction with Brother David Baptist. Is coming to us, of course, from the Canada, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's coming to us from Canada. And so help us understand. We've seen how the church is structured. And so how are the delegates to the General Conference selected?
Okay. So there are some general procedures and some general guidelines. For example, all the presidents of all the conferences are automatically delegates to the General Conference session. All the presidents of all the unions, the presidents and the secretaries are automatically delegates. Same with the conferences, right? The presidents and secretaries, treasurers, automatically delegates. Then each division selects based on their population, not the population of the people in the country, but based on the membership.
The membership of the church.
They select certain delegates at large, which would be pastors and lay members, to represent their field. And then those people that are able to go, not everyone that may be selected or nominated to go to the General Conference may be able, so there's substitute delegates that will go instead of them. And then the first responsibility of the General Conference session after the delegates arrive, this year we have 2,800 delegates, okay? The first job is to select the nominating committee. The nominating committee this year is 252 delegates.
252.
Right.
So once the delegates get there, all after the registration, now we get into the business. And the first business is to select the nominating committee.
Right.
252.
52.
252.
Right. So we have 233 from the 13 world divisions, and then the rest are from the General Conference. Okay?
Yes.
Those individuals, those delegates are selected, and then they are put into a special room where the work of the nominating committee will begin. The first responsibility of the nominating committee is to select the president of the General Conference and the 3 executive officers, so the president, the secretary, and the treasurer of the General Conference will be selected by the nominating committee.
That is on the first sitting.
That's the first day.
Okay.
Okay? So the way that is done is each division selects 10% of its regular delegates to be members of the nominating committee. Okay? And then the General Conference selects 8% of its delegates at large, those employed by the General Conference or its institutions. The institutions are like Loma Linda University or even the Adventist hospitals and universities here in Kenya or here in ECD. The president of those universities are delegates to the General Conference. So some of those may be selected to be members of the nominating committee, as well as there are people at large, lay members that will be selected as well. Okay? Who can be on the nominating committee? Now, this is an interesting question. Go ahead.
Before you get to that, David, I mean, why should we begin by nominating or electing the president?
Okay.
Why will we begin with him?
So, because the church structure is such that we need to nominate him first so that we can continue the meeting. So he often chairs many of the meetings, and in addition, this is the person who is the leader of our denomination. Okay? So everything, the leadership starts with the president of the General Conference. I mean, leadership starts with Jesus, but in terms of the human beings, it starts with the president of the General Conference. So if someone has a problem with someone that has been selected or nominated and they don't agree with that decision, they can go privately to the nominating committee after the announcement is made in the general session, and the nominating committee will listen to their concern, and they can accept it or they can reject it based on what the concern is of that person that's been selected to serve in whatever capacity in the church they've been selected to serve in.
Perhaps has there been in history where someone has had a problem with a name that has been selected? I don't know.
I am not. I'm not going to comment on that.
All right. So talk about the nominating committee and the delegates voting. At what particular point now do we bring in the general delegates now?
So the general delegates are sitting in the regular auditorium or the stadium. Actually, it's a stadium, right? And the members of the nominating committee are in a conference room separate from the general delegates. There's 2,800 delegates, and of those, the 252 will be selected from those to be the nominating committee. The nominating committee, they will sit there and they'll work away every single day of the General Conference session, except Sabbath, on selecting members for the leadership of the different divisions and leadership of the General Conference.
On those consecutive days?
Yes, they'll be working away, selecting, and they usually inform the person that has not been re-elected or reselected before they announce the new person that they have decided on.
Okay.
So not everyone is people often ask, will the current president of the General Conference be re-elected? And I say, I really don't know the answer to that question. Only God knows.
Yeah.
But he may or may not be reselected. It's up in the air, right? But we will find out on Friday evening.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Dave. That is a powerful interpretation of what exactly happens after the delegates have already gotten to registered, and now the process begins. It seems to be a really interesting process and a thorough one, considering the number of delegates and the number of those who are in the nominating committee. It seems to be something that is, it happens under all provisions as far as the church manual and the church policy is concerned, right?
Right.
Correct.
So the rest of the delegates, people say, well, what are the rest of the delegates doing while the nominating committee is working? So there are been many items from the church manual and from the church constitution that delegates or people in the church have recommended or suggested or requested to be modified or amended.
Amendments, yes.
So the church delegates, the official General Conference session, the regular church delegates will be reviewing those changes and maybe make or maybe not make those changes. There will be also, they will review the 28 fundamental beliefs. Like last time we added one belief. So there was 27 for many years, and now it became 28.
28, right.
So they will review those things. They'll review maybe the church hymnal. Sometimes they've added the new church hymnal that we had in 1985, came from the General Conference session. So all these things is what they'll be working on throughout the 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is an intense period. It's an intensive work that is going on down there at the St.
And one more thing I wanted to add.
Sure.
In the evening, after the session, the business meetings are finished, each division will make a presentation
Yes.
of what is happening in their field and how evangelism is being conducted and how God is blessing them. And they'll look at, have they created new institutions or new schools, how many churches they have built, how many new members have been baptized. They'll give a complete report of what's happening in that division.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David, for that insight. And so at this point, we want to look at the history of the General Conference sessions. Of course, it has been there. And this time we are looking at the 62nd General Conference session. So it's been a journey, and we want to look at the history. How has it been in the past? And when we come back, we'll be looking at what we expect out of this one. Stay tuned.
The General Conference session of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is more than just a global meeting. It's a movement rooted in history, mission, and faith. It began in 1863 in Battle Creek, Michigan, with just 20 delegates from 6 conferences. Back then, the church was young and growing, and sessions were held annually, then biennially, to guide its direction. 2 early sessions stand out. In 1888, Minneapolis marked a deeper embrace of righteousness by faith. Then in 1901, a new decentralized leadership model was introduced, a system in use till today. As the Adventist message spread, the session followed. From Washington, D.C. in 1903 to Vienna, Austria in 1975, each location reflecting the church's global mission. By the 1980s, the session adopted a 5-year cycle, becoming a spiritual summit and governance assembly for the world church. In 1980, Dallas saw the adoption of the 27 fundamental beliefs. A 28th, Growing in Christ, was added in 2005 at the St. Louis session. Then came 2020, the first time in church history. The session planned in Indianapolis was postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic. It finally took place in 2022 in a scaled-down format, once again in St. Louis. Now all eyes turn to July 3rd to 12th, 2025, when thousands will gather at St. Louis under the theme, Jesus is coming, I will go. Over 2,800 delegates and more than 100,000 attendees are expected, representing 23 million baptized members in over 210 countries and territories. The General Conference session is the church's highest decision-making body. It's where leaders are elected, policies are shaped, and the mission moves forward, all anchored in the hope of Christ's soon return.
Interesting how the General Conference session has a rich legacy that spans over 160 years. You can imagine. And all through this period, we've been having these sessions. And it's interesting. This one is also, it's one of its kind, and it's going to be interesting. And so we are joined again in our studio, like I mentioned to you earlier on. We'll be having various guests coming on board to help us understand what is happening in St. Louis, just to bring onto us a speed of what is actually the session and what is taking place there. And so we are joined again with Pastor Michael Wambua. Pastor Michael Wambua is coming to us from, it's a union in Congo, right, Pastor?
Yeah.
Kindly.
Yeah, through East Congo Union.
East Congo Union.
Yeah.
Interesting how the, the East Central Africa Division covers all those regions. How is the mission work like there?
Yeah, Congo mission work is good, though we have a lot of challenges. The country is not stable. There's a lot of domestic wars, civil wars, but God is good.
We are happy to have you. We're glad to have you. Now, Pastor, we're looking at the General Conference session taking place from, throughout this around 10 days or so. And we have already seen the history, how it has been going on. The 6-second General Conference session that is happening this time, what should we expect out of it?
Yeah, we are expecting a lot of things to happen. As the previous presentation about the history of the general session, the person who was before me spoke about. There's a lot of amendments which will take place, and moreover in our church manual, election of the new leaders, and even some strategic plan for how we'll go. In fact, that will be the main. We have a strategic plan for how we'll go 2025 to 2030. That will be the emphasis. That's the reason why the theme for these GCs, I will go. Jesus is coming.
Absolutely, absolutely. And perhaps if we can look at how the schedule is like on the table, what are some of the notable agendas that perhaps we could be keen to observe?
Yeah, some of the notable agenda which will be keen to observe is we're expecting to get maybe new leaders. Yeah, because after every 5 years, we need the church, we get new leaders from the GC to the local church. Those are some of the notable things we are going to observe.
Away from the election of the new leaders for the divisions and for the general conference, is there something like in the amendments of the church manual? Are there things that we can keep an eye on?
Yeah, there's some amendments in our church manual, especially the relation between the pastors and the lay people. That's one of the things we're going to discuss. And even there's some of the doctrinal issues, maybe the Godhead, about the state of death, and still to discuss about the creation. There's a lot of questions concerning Godhead, creation, and the state of death. Yeah, so they will discuss about that.
There's a lot to expect.
Yes,
and of course we'll be keeping an eye to ensure that you are brought up to speed with what is taking place or what is happening at the General Conference session for this year. And so away from the activities of, when we hear of the session, away from the nominations and away from the activities in the plenary hall, what are other things that, will be interesting at the General Conference session? Yeah,
away from the amendments and whatever, still, the General Conference in this year, 2025, they are just going to adopt new fields and new unions. Yeah, because the church is expanding. So I came to realize there's like 6 unions they are going to vote in, and even 17 conferences they are going to vote in.
Do we have some in our division?
Yeah, in Sudan. Yeah, Sudan we have one. Yeah,
interesting. And that one just shows how the mission work has been delved into as far as our East Central Africa division is concerned. Because if a union is being opened or being adopted, then it means mission work has been, the work is expanding. And so what will be your message to, the local congregant who was not able to attend the GC? I mean, as the proceedings are going on back at home, what should we be doing?
As a church member, our work is just we have to work. First, we need to pray. We need to pray the Spirit of the Lord to lead our leaders to make a right decision. Even when Moses was in the mountain, the work of the church members is just to pray. Another thing they need to follow. You know, most of the church members, they do not follow what goes on. It's good to follow, and especially like this segment, and even to go to our website and to follow what is happening so that they may be well informed of what is happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why we will be here on a daily basis for all this period to bring you up to speed with what is happening at the General Conference, just to ensure that you are also in the highlights to know exactly what is taking place as you continue, supporting the church in various forms. And so that's all that we had today. And we pray that you will remain with us as we keep on following through the session proceedings. And we'll be bringing updates on a daily basis to ensure that you're also up to speed with what is happening. Thank you so much, Pastor Michael Wambua.
Thank you so
much. We are
much,
so grateful for affording us time to be here. Dear viewer, from wherever you've been, thank you so much. Hope to see you soon again up to these updates. My name is Titus Munjalu. God bless you.